Hello, YouTube. So apparently, whenever you build a kitchen island, you got to build some chairs. Go figure. So like any normal man, I went to Home Depot and bought a 2x12, and I whipped this thing out in about an hour, hour and a half, just using some Craig pocket holes. And I had a little 1x laying around for the seat in the back there, but it's just dimensional lumber. Just cut it up, found a little angle for the back legs, and put it together. Now this was just a reference for about what size we're wanting. Nowhere near where we actually going to be using this, but took it inside. The height was perfect. It was nice. The seat was about 16.5 inch by 18 inches wide, and it was just too big and bulky and stuck way out. So she wanted something more slim, lighter. So designed this one again out of a 2x12. This time I milled it down. It's an inch and a half by inch and a quarter, and then 3/4 inch on the little side pieces. Routed everything, made it all nice and smooth, and got rid of the pocket holes and made it nice and fancy. It seats about 13-inch by almost 14 inches, and it was just a little too small. So I started thinking maybe I was married to Goldilocks because she couldn't decide on anything. So finally we split it in the middle, and we came up with these measurements. So this is what we settled on. This is made out of maple, and the seat on it is 15 3/4 wide by 14.5 deep, and it seems to be just right. The legs again are inch and a half by inch and a quarter, and everything else is an inch and a quarter wide by 3/4 inch, except for the top and the bottom of the backrest. The top piece is 3 1/4, and the bottom is right at 2 inches. So, like I said, made out of maple, and it's finished with Rubio Monocoat Pure. She wanted a light natural wood color, so that's why we went with the maple. And this stuff is hard, but it's fun to work with. So let's get started. So, like I said, I already made this other chair. This is the other one out of pine. So the back leg here, I got this little 1/4 inch template that I made. And before I go cutting on this hard pine, I wanted to have a thicker template, so I transferred everything over to 3/4 inch MDF, make it a little beefier. So there you see, I got it traced out. Take it over to the table saw, cut the MDF up, get as much waste as I can. Cut the end off here. And then I did what you're not supposed to do, but I feel comfortable doing it. This is all freehand on the table saw. Just watch out for kickback, and of course this is MDF. It's nothing. If it was maple, I would not do it. And then took it to the bandsaw, finished it up. And since it is a template, I'm just going to screw the 1/4 inch down to it and run it through the router with an old flush trim bit, because that MDF will dull them up. And to go ahead and put the tamper on the bottom, I went ahead and did that there, so take one step out of the way. So each leg is going to have two different tampers on it going different ways. So, and just like that, we now have our master back leg template, which I'm writing on right now. Bam. So the next morning we run to the hardwood dealership and we pick up some maple. And like I said, they're inch and a half, but only thing they had in stock was 8/4, so 2 inches. So that's what I had. So figured out where all the templates would land out, so I'd have 8 back legs for 4 chairs, and started cutting everything oversized. And again, this stuff is hard. Here's my planer. Most people complain that this thing is too heavy to lug around, but as you can see, it's heavy, but it's not that bad. You can definitely move it around. It's a great little planer. Love it. So send everything through the planer, get it all fixed up, and just like that, took about a 1/2 inch off. And we're ready to start cutting out these back legs. So took it over to the Harbor Freight bandsaw and started cutting. And then I got me a upcut, downcut spiral bit with the top bearing, and just took my time and went around this and got all of it cut up. Now for the front legs, again, took it over. This is 1 1/4 inch thick, so now I'm cutting it over 1.5 inches, cutting everything oversized, and you'll see why. And then for all the other pieces, cutting them as well. So cutting it over 3/4 inch here. And then for the seat, cutting these sections out of a 4/4 piece of maple that they had. And also the top piece of the backrest right there, like I said, is going to be 3 1/4, and then move it over, and now 2 inch. And the reason I cut everything oversized is because I take it to the planer and plane everything together down to their final dimensions. So made everything 3/4 of an inch thick. And here's the top pieces of the backrest. Like I said, I planed them down where they're exactly 3¼ inch. So every piece went through the planer both ways. So they're the exact measurements. And this made a whole bunch of saw chips, sawdust. And then I put a sacrificial fence up to eliminate chip out, tear out, and put up a stop block. So these are the front legs. So square up one edge, move it over to the stop block, and now I'm guaranteed I have the same length. So whip that out. And now every piece, it's right here's the slats that go in the backrest are 7½. So as you can see, I just screwed down a scrap piece to my sacrificial fence. And then the last thing I did for the bottom stretchers, it's going to have an angle on it, so I cut them last so I don't cut into that fence more than I needed to. Found the angle, and just like that, perfect. And then here, set up my little jig here so I can get all these little tampers on the bottom. So I cut all the legs one way, and then I flip it. Right here I flip it so the piece I just cut's on top, and then cut this other angle on it. And then I make marks on every single piece where it's going to have a loose tenon. So right here's the backrest, the top and the bottom piece, and you can see I'm just marking everything on there. And speaking of loose tenons, here's the loose tenon and jig that I have. I'm going to be making 2 different mortises, 2 different widths. And I got this jig from Tamar by 3x3 Customs. Check her YouTube out. I really enjoy her videos and learned a lot, and that's where I got this jig from. So just slap it in here, plunge her out, and just like that, you have a perfect little hole. And I use a stop block so everything's in the same place. You don't have to do any measurements. Slide it up, clamp it down, and go on. So each chair has 28 loose tenons, which equals 56 holes. Times that by 4. So I was here for a while, but it didn't go too bad. So right here you can see my stop block. So right here's the little pieces. Just slide it up, and now every time, every piece will be the same. So this right here is real time. Slide it up, tighten it down, and just like this. Just take your time, and you got a perfect mortise. Unscrew it, flip it over, and you know it's in the exact same spot. So no measuring, just good to go. Now I'll sped it back up for you. And this thing works on every single piece. So right here, I'm going to show you, look at that, nice, oh yes. So right here's the angled. So all you do is take your little stop block, move it where it's going to sit flat, tighten that down, and now you're good to go. Every piece should be the same. Here's the front legs. Beautiful, nice. It even does the back legs with the curves. And then the top piece, wanted to give it a little bit of a design to it, so made this little template, cut those grooves. Now it's the next morning, do the favorite part of any woodworker, drink coffee. Love it. And then I had a sand, of course, which I don't love, but it's part of it. This maple was hard to sand. Man, it's hard stuff. So now I took every single piece and gave it a round over. I didn't want any sharp edge whatsoever on the thing, except for right here where the seat is going to sit. I'm going to leave that flat. So the seat will sit on there flat. Everything else, though, got a nice little round over, every little piece. Off screen, I cut down some little strips, and I'm giving them a 1/4 inch round over all the way around on all 4 corners, because these are my loose tenons. Look at that fit. These right here are the wider ones. Man, that's perfect. Enough little room for glue. We're good to go. Now I clamped down my speed square to my Harbor Freight bandsaw, and I just started cutting out little tenons here. Lots of them. Lots of them. And before I put any glue on any single piece, I did a dry fit every single time just to make sure everything would go together. And off screen, right there, as you can tell, I cut this 1/8 inch groove on the side upper pieces, because those are going to be holding the seat down with some Z fasteners. And just like that, everything's on there. It all fit. I wanted to make sure that I can make it flush at the top and everything would be able to be squared up. So with the square, I like it. Looking good, so we're gonna add some glue. Throw it in the holes, take a stick, rub it around, make sure everything's covered. Throw glue on the little loose tendons. Use your finger, which I hate, but got the job done. Trying to be sparingly with the glue because I didn't want it everywhere, but make sure you got enough. Put it in clamps and wipe it all up. So do the best you can to wipe up as much glue as you can right here to prevent sanding later. And just like that, we dry fit again. Make sure everything's good. Spread glue everywhere. Clamp it up. Make sure it's square. Clean it up. Set it aside. Speaking of setting aside, there's a bunch of them sitting over here dry or gluing up, and there's a bunch more needing to be glued up. And because it's raining outside, we're in the shed. Here's the back rest. I went ahead and got them glued up, and you can see they were not routed because I'm doing that right now. Figured it'd be easier to do it when it was glued up and everything would match up and fit together fine and give it a nice little round over. Make it feel a lot better. And just like that, I got two of them glued up now. And I got some seat panels gluing up, waiting to be cut up. So I moved those two inside, you can see back there, and started dry fitting the other ones. Like I said, dry fit every single thing before you add any glue. It all fits together, looks good, take it apart, and then we spread glue. Glue, stick, loose tenon, more glue, clamps, clean. You get the idea. And just put the puzzle together. A little tap tap here, a little squeeze there, good to go. And again, make sure you clean the best you can. And like that one's sitting aside gluing. And now it's another time to sand. So take these seats, start sanding them down. And with Rubio, they recommend just about 120, no more than 180. So what I like to do to get a perfect square is I take my piece over to the router table with a straight edge and get a straight edge on it, and then take my square and make all my marks. And right here you can see my marks. I'm making sure they are square. My crosscut sled is not square whatsoever, but it's close enough to get close to the line. So I double side tape straight edge against the mark that I just made with the pencil, run it through the router, move on to the next side, get it exactly on the pencil, run it through the router, work your way around, and that will give you a perfect square. It is more work, but it gives you a perfect square. And you don't have any cut marks from the table saw because it is nice and smooth. So off screen, I cut the little notches off for the back table or chair legs, and I'm going to give this thing a nice round over to make it smooth. So on the top, on the sides, and the front, I give it a 1/2 inch. On the entire bottom, I gave it a 1/4 inch round over, and on the back of the chair, the top and bottom, got the 1/4 inch round over. So here I switch it over to 1/4, running it through, and just like that, our seats are complete. And now take everything and sand it by hand one last time. A lot of sanding, but get it all done. Clean it all off with some compressed air. And then wipe it down with some mineral spirits. Get all the dust you can off of it. And once it's dry, we start spreading some Rubio. Just rub it in, let it sit, and rub it off. Every nook and cranny, every little speck, get it all done, wipe it off, and just like that, it is done. Finisto, finish applied. Let them sit out in the sun a little bit, dry up. The next day, here's the little Z fasteners. Put them on the bottom, see how they can allow wood movement. So pre-drill holes, put screws in holes. Seat is now attached to chair. And just like that, the wife threw another curveball at me. She's like, I wanted to have these little fancy doohickeys on it. So off screen, I went and cut these fancy little doohickeys. And here I am pre-drilling. And right here, With these screws, I made sure that I drilled a big enough hole, and then I tightened them in by hand because I did not want one of these screws to break off in this hardwood. Added some plugs, flush cut as best I can, and this little sander right here is nice because it's portable and got the job done. Spread some Rubio on those. Make sure that they are finished up, and just like that, we have 4 chairs ready to go. Once they finish drying, we take them inside to their final resting place where we can enjoy fun family adventures and food and sit around and chit chat. But it was a fun build. I enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. We will see you next time.